And welcome to the Midday Show. We've got some headlines for you. We have an unfortunate passing. Scams, just scams everywhere, Mark. There's just more scams than you know what to do with right now. Mark, how are you feeling today?
Like we should have come up with some scams.
Dude, is there a scam you want to start with?
Literally, my phone just rang. I got to send a text, tell him I'll call him back. Is there a scam? One that works, one that's easy, one that makes us a lot of money.
Do we want to start talking about Lisa Marie Pressley? You may know more about that than I do.
Well, I mean, just imagine. I mean, I know Michael Jackson's kids, and they're kind of out of the limelight, I think. I don't really know a whole lot about Michael Jackson's kids, but there are few people in American history like Elvis.
Sure.
And him and Priscilla had one kid, and it was Lisa Marie. Yeah. And I mean, what kind of a life? And she couldn't have been very old she's 54 now. Her dad died in 70. She was 9, 8, 9, 10, something like that when her dad died. I think her dad died in 77. Okay. So, but then your whole life your dad was Elvis. It was, it's, I don't know. And then,
well, I think to your point too, there's lots of kids who have to my parent is X, right?
Right.
But I think your point is is there a bigger?
There's only
X?
one Elvis.
That X is enormous.
It is enormous. I'm trying to think of who it would be like now. I'm sure like the Beatles kids, Paul McCartney, but Lisa Marie was famous, and does Paul McCartney have a famous kid? If he does, I don't know. Right. I mean, Julian Lennon, I remember, is a musician, whatever. But and you even said Lisa Marie was a musician. I didn't really even know that. I can't name a Lisa Marie song, I don't think.
I hinted you. I said I've actually never heard her sing, and then to my surprise, you go, I didn't know she sang. No, so I will say this just to give her credit, since we're talking about her. She did 3 albums. Her first album in 2003 was gold certified. So it moved over.
Sold 500,000.
Yeah, so it moved over 500,000.
She was married to Michael Jackson for a little bit. I didn't mention that.
I did not know that.
Oh, you didn't know that?
I had no idea about that.
Yeah, they were married for a couple minutes.
When you say a year?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
It was more than one of the Britney Spears, they were married for a weekend.
Okay.
But yeah, they were. So it's just, I don't know. It's weird.
Do you find it, I mean, not to make this interpersonal, she's 54. We've talked a lot over the last year or so about the big birthday you had, and just
You saying, does this scare me more?
What I'm saying is I'm at that age right now where when someone has a heart attack in their late 30s, I kind of I'm like, oh crap, I better start thinking about some of this stuff. When you find when someone passes away unexpectedly and it says they're 54, does it hit you differently?
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, one of the other things that's happened to me is, because now I'm 51, we just lost our head football coach in Montoursville, and he had cancer, and he was 46.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the scary thing is, we had 3 new coaches come in at the same time. The new football coach, well, he'd been an assistant, got promoted, but football coach, a boys basketball coach, and girls basketball coach. And we're all roughly the same. I think me and the girls basketball coach are within a year of each other. And we're all roughly the same age.
I get it.
And we all came in healthy. At least he thought he was healthy. I don't know when.
Sure.
And then just to see how fast it can go.
Sure.
And yeah, whenever I hear things like this, and now you go back and of people whose parents passed away years ago, and then you're like, your dad was only in his 40s when he had a heart attack and all. So yes, it is very sobering to hear something like a 54. Anytime a 54-year-old passes away, knowing I'm 51, it is sobering.
It is. Heather mentioned as well, she was also married to Nicolas Cage for a few minutes.
I think I knew that too. I wouldn't have pulled that off the top of
Yeah.
my head, but now that she says that.
Interesting. Did she have kids? I'm asking you questions. As
They
if you're
must.
like
Her and Michael Jackson did not.
Okay.
But I think she did.
Okay. Really, really interesting. So very sad news on the passing of Pressley.
She's very, I didn't know she had, I mean, obviously she was more of a performer than I thought. But I think to a degree she was a little Paris Hilton-ish.
Okay.
That she was famous for being related to famous.
Well, carving
a
out
little Kardashian-ish.
Well, carving out your own niche would be almost an impossible hill.
If your
climb.
dad was Elvis.
I mean, it's.
I don't know. Well, I was just never mind. Never mind what I was going to say. We'll move on.
Well, no, this is like the Miley Cyrus is the. First
That's who I was going to say,
well,
and then I thought people were going to say. I thought you were going to say. So you're comparing Elvis to Billy Ray Cyrus?
Well, no, it's the opposite. I think why it's a good thing to bring up is because I think Billy Ray Cyrus, you can overcome that hill if you're Miley Cyrus. Like if you're talented and you're willing to separate yourself from your father, that hill is a reasonable hill to climb in their world, right? Like I'm not saying it's not it's easy, but I mean, yeah, that hill of trying to carve your own niche when Elvis is your dad. I mean, that's a mountain. It's an Everest to try to get to the top of. I mean,
it would have been a crazy life.
It really, really would have. Real quick, Heather also says she had 2 kids, a daughter and a son.
Geez.
She thinks the son may have passed away recently. So, all sorts of stuff here in the news. I mean, some of it's. We'll start here. Donald Trump company sentenced to pay $1.61 million penalty for tax fraud. Did you come across?
I saw that. One of the things I read that was interesting. Apparently, they said it was very cleverly written. 1.6 million with an M, not billion, million with an M. They said in his corporate world, that's like a rounding error.
Sure.
1.6. But they said there's other legal ramifications about if he would be convicted. Is he charged? Or was he convicted, or was he?
It's the company itself right now.
Correct.
Is the one that's dealing with the charges.
So it has to do with credit lines and things that they won't be able to bid on and stuff like that. So they said it's not the 1.6 million that matters because it doesn't. It's the lingering effects down the road.
Yeah, there's a couple of people within the company that are getting whacked right now. And then the company itself is obviously going to have restrictions placed against it. So it kind of brings the web of business back into place.
It's like ping pong every day of, oh, here's what Trump did. Oh, here's what Biden. Look, we found more documents.
Sure. Well,
they were in a sock drawer. Look.
That was the other one, Joe Biden. They found a couple more documents since we last spoke on here. He is,
They've probably found a couple more since we started the show.
Fully cooperating. I will say this, because I've said to you before, I don't think the Biden documents are that big of a deal. I didn't think the Trump stuff was as big of a deal as they made it out to be. I will say, CNN trying to, and I joked about you with this before the show, they wrote about a 2,000-word article about his final days as vice president and how everyone was scrambling to try to close his White House office. The spin on both sides, the spin of Fox trying to make it seem like they were after Trump, and then the spin of CNN to try to basically pat Biden on the back and say, it's okay, it's not a big deal. It is funny to watch both sides to scramble to try to figure out how to best cover this. The last thing that I do want to say about it, and you hinted at this to me Wednesday, I think it's fascinating if you are somebody that did not want these two people to be at the forefront of the race for 2024, this is a disaster because they are the only two things.
Because they're in the news every day.
They're in the news every day. And now, if you were somebody that didn't want to have to deal with Trump in 2024, this is just ammo to justify things. It's ammo to just keep him relevant. It's ammo to say, look, the other side, like I said, the finger pointing aspect of it. This is for anybody who didn't want a Biden-Trump 2024. This is a complete nightmare and a complete disaster right now. And it should be the opposite. It should the fact, if it is a big deal that Trump had classified documents, and if it is a big deal that Biden had classified documents, it should do the opposite. It should disqualify. It should hurt their kid. And I personally believe it's doing the opposite.
I still think there's no way these two can run. Neither party can.
The closer, the further along we get, the more I'm just kind of I don't know.
Okay, let's just start on the left. They can't send Biden again.
We'll see.
They can't.
We'll
they
see.
can't. And I know you say, well, they can. They did. I mean, I know they're allowed to. There's no way. And on the,
it's a disaster for people who want to move forward on both sides. It's not a good thing.
There's no way.
Really not.
There's no way either side can send those two back to the plate.
We'll see. It
reminds me, you know what it reminds me of? The movie Grudge Match, where Stallone fought Robert De Niro when they were like 70 years old. That's what it looks like.
We'll see. We're going to find out. I did want to mention, we've talked a lot about FTX on here, Sam Bankman-Fried. There's more and more discoveries coming out. Bankruptcy lawyers said Sam Bankman-Fried's Alameda Research, they were like a hedge fund investment company, had access to a $65 billion, capital B,
with a B,
not an M, B, billion credit line from FTX. They used customer loans were made available through a backdoor that were created by FTX co-founder Gary Wang. The lawyer said that Sam Bankman-Fried told Wang, hey, go in, create this backdoor so that we can take this. The funds, this is according to the lawyers, the funds were used for, I read it to you earlier, and now I'm missing it here, but the funds were essentially used not in altruistic ways, as Sam Bankman-Fried would have you believe earlier. Some of it was spent on real estate in the Bahamas. There was, I think, over $6 million. It was 6.9 million was spent on meals and entertainment in just 9 months.
Now, repeat that just for the emphasis of it.
$6.9 million on meals and entertainment in just 9 months. 256 million on Bahamian real estate. And again, this is all the $65 billion. Because of the way this backdoor worked, they can attach it to user funds. Right. So this is not like money that was tucked away or built another way. This was people taking their money, putting it into the FTX, thinking it was going to be invested, thinking that a brokerage would hold on to a certain percentage of it. And instead they were backdooring it and buying real estate and having parties. It's really, it's not a great, it's just bad. It's just so bad. This is what else bothers me too. And why I wanted to bring it up again, like beating it like a dead horse. Every day I get up and I see Trump and I see Biden and I see Trump and I see Biden. And I'm just like, let's not forget about some of these other things, because the Sam Bankman-Fried story is it's fascinating in all the wrong ways.
I think a lot of America doesn't care about it, because if you haven't touched crypto, you're just like, yeah.
So to you, it's almost like you got what you deserve.
Old people don't care. They don't get crypto. They don't understand.
But they don't care. But they don't care about the fact that somebody literally $65 billion backdoored of user funds.
I think to that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it would be almost like when because if I to my generation, when Lisa Marie Pressley dies, and to people older than us, it matters.
Okay. You
tell my kid, my high school basketball team, Lisa Marie Pressley died, and they're like, who? And it doesn't matter. Now, flip it around. If like Drake died, there would be half of society would be crushed. Yeah. And people 50 and older would be like, yeah.
It's a great analogy. But I'm not saying 65 Bitcoin. Like $65 billion is relatable in the sense that like it's money, and old people know what money is. Or am I not?
But it wasn't their money.
So because it's not theirs.
They don't tell you to get off that guy's lawn. They just say get off my lawn.
It's funny though, because we talked about like the pension fund, the teachers' pension in Ottawa, and there were other collectives that put into this FTX.
That mattered. Those people.
If you are older, your money could have been involved.
It could have been, but if it wasn't, yeah, I don't think they care that much.
So they know that for a fact. This is official. $65 billion backdoored. Every time I say billion, I catch myself because I think I must be making a mistake. It is not a mistake. $65 billion. The other one I wanted to bring up to you today, and we've talked about this before, George Santos, the representative from New York State, he has come out and he said he will resign if 142,000 people ask him to. He is referring, and I read this after I read it to you, he is referring to the 142,000 people who voted for him to be the representative.
There's no way he stays. There's no way he lasts.
He has been pretty steady on the fact that he was voted, he was elected, and he intends to stay. It will be interesting to see, like if you're in New York State, is there a petition, right? Is there an online, is there something that happens?
He just makes a joke of the party. And as long as he's around, like I don't know what the rules are, But the powers that be in the Republican Party have to come to him and say, listen, you're a fraud and you're making us look bad. And yeah, they voted for someone who they don't know. If you would have ran on your own, you know, what you've accomplished, and then you'd have won that something. No, he just lied about, like, they voted for someone who doesn't exist.
Oh, you're talking about the voters. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, now I understand.
So you say they voted for you, but they thought it'd be like if someone walked in on a job interview and handed a resume and said, yeah, I graduated from Harvard.
Yeah.
So you think you're hiring a Harvard grad.
Sure.
And then you find out the person is illiterate. Well, it's not who we hired.
Yeah.
So
Santos has said repeatedly this week that he will not step down despite calls for him to do so from leading Republican officials in his home state and a handful of his GOP colleagues in the House. A growing number of Republican lawmakers have called for Santos to resign in recent days, including at least 4 in New York and another out of state. So it's, you know, his own party is calling.
They have to. It looks bad.
Yeah. Very, very.
So, here, I have a question for you.
Were
you done?
How's that? Well, I mean, I think that's our scam roundup right there.
We are pretty scammy.
Right there.
We are pretty scammy. This is a deep philosophical question for you. And I want to. There has to be a study on this, and I want to know the answer because you know a lot of stupid stuff about a lot of stupid stuff.
I'm ready.
Does medicine work better if it leaves an aftertaste?
That can't be. There can't. Well, how do I want to say this? I would imagine there's no actual evidence of that. Who's implying that? Where is this question coming from?
I am. I think it does.
So you think the aftertaste would have something to do with it, or you're implying that the medicine, if it works, gives an aftertaste?
No, I'm implying that the aftertaste kind of reminds your brain that you've taken the medicine, and from a psychosomatic placebo-ish.
Yeah.
It's not just I took it, but your brain keeps remembering, oh yeah, you took it. Oh yeah, you took it. Oh yeah, because I can keep tasting it after I took it.
So at the risk of being an idiot, I think I'm going to agree with you on the psychological standpoint. From a science standpoint,
not from a science standpoint.
I don't think I agree.
But with placebos and not like it works. Your brain makes this stuff work.
I think I've told you before about if you're trying to stay awake in the car, like if you're driving late at night and like say you have your bag behind you, one of the best things you can do is brush your teeth. Because if you brush your teeth every morning, there's a psychological aspect to if you pull over and brush your teeth real quick, like your brain, like your body goes, oh, we're going.
Don't you brush your teeth at night too?
What's that?
Doesn't work. Don't you brush your teeth before you go to bed?
I have met people that do both. I actually knew somebody that only brushed their teeth at night, which I found fascinating. Like I could never.
I brush my teeth at both. I couldn't imagine not.
Yeah.
I will say this though about the same thing. I don't wear my glasses, not exclusively, but I mostly wear my glasses at night after I take my contacts out and in that netherworld. So if I'm driving at night with my glasses on, I'm tired. Because my brain knows, oh, glasses are on. It's almost time to go to bed.
Yes.
So yes, I am with you on that. I didn't know. See, the toothbrushing I can see, but I think toothbrushing is one of those things that it signifies time to go to sleep and time to wake up. Because I think most people brush their teeth.
See, I think you're putting a ton of faith in the American public that they are brushing their teeth at night.
I brush my teeth both, so it would work both ways.
I'm not saying you don't.
No, I get it.
Mature adults don't. What I'm saying is like there's a handful of us that from time to time do not.
I get it. I get what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
But how did I? So yes, I bet
you brought up medicine.
If there could be a study.
Sure how you brought that up? Are you sick?
Well, I have a sinus infection. I just took 2, and it was like there's that chalky. And I also believe, and I believe this since I was a little kid, if the medicine doesn't taste bad, it doesn't work as well.
I disagree, but that's fine.
If it had the stuff that you just have to choke it down, and that's the stuff that's really going to work.
Interesting. See, I don't take a ton of medicine.
I don't either, but
that's your belief.
That's my.
Were you a Robitussin kid?
I don't know if I've ever taken Robitussin.
Really? Ever?
Yeah. No, I don't know if I have.
Interesting. Robitussin is like one of the only ones I remember. I remember that and the pink stuff. What was the pink stuff?
I took Dimetap a lot. And that's why I think Dimetap. Did you ever take Dimetap?
No, but I've heard of Dimetap.
It's like grape. I think it's too. I don't think it worked. It tasted fine.
Yeah. I don't remember. I'm not saying I didn't. Maybe I did. Like I was given it and didn't know. But the Robitussin is one. And then the pink bottle with the
Pepto-Bismol.
Was it Pepto-Bismol? Or was it something else?
No, Pepto-Bismol.
Okay. I remember taking the pink stuff a handful.
Now, Pepto-Bismol, I will say, does not taste nasty, and I thought Pepto-Bismol worked for me.
I can just picture like a pediatrician listening to this conversation, and he's just like screaming at the screen.
But there is, I mean, the studies with the placebos, you give people sugar pills, and they think it's the real pill, and not everyone gets better. Like, it doesn't cure all kinds of things.
No,
but
there was because I love these tangents with you. There was a really interesting article that was just done. This was like right at the end of 2022, and it was about happiness in business. And
and you can't have both.
Well, no. So one of the aspects was this guy's argument. They did all these studies and they talked to all these employees and they like split up into teams. And what they realized was after they asked people all these like series of questions, happiness ended up being like one of the highest factors in success within these teams. So essentially, like if you set a bar, if the team is happy, they will usually reach the bar or exceed it. If a team is miserable, they won't. Now, you can flip that and say, well, they're unhappy because they're not
succeeding.
It's all relative. However, happiness became one of the factors that they used. So his point was, you spend all this time and money and research in these companies, and what you realize is like if you just went around and tried to make people happy every day, you might reach your metrics regardless without having to spend all the money if you just invest in the people and try to keep them pleased, right?
I agree.
So the irony is what you're saying, placebo effect. I think placebo goes even further than like the physical aspect of taking a pill. I think a lot of times, like if you can convince yourself you're happy, if you can convince yourself this is what you want to do, or like there's a lot of mental aspects to some of the stuff that I think we're just like psychologists will say we've known forever. But I think like actually applying them to real world scenarios, we're like just scratching the surface.
I totally agree. I saw a thing, TED Talk, an old job I had, and it was like a Harvard grad or whatever, and he studied happiness was his like what his life's work was.
Yeah.
I don't know what his degrees were in.
Sure.
But that's what he did. And he talked about one of the great problems with life. And I've seen this and I've talked to people, I've talked to my teams about this. It's like we talk about with a team. Like we start out and the goal is to win a championship because that's what every team's goal is, even though for some teams it's way more realistic than others.
Sure.
And then you have a lot of those old school coaches, like the militaristic coaches that we grew up in, like we're going to work hard every day and we're going to work and we're going to grind and every day is going to be, sure. But somewhere down the road, we're going to win and then we're going to be happy down the road and then it's going to be all worthwhile. But then when you win like a district championship, then now you immediately go to the state playoffs. And now we have a new goal. We need to win our first state playoff game. And that there's people that do that. They're like, I'm going to grind through college and I'm going to get a 4.0. Mm-hmm. And then they do that. But now they got to go to grad school or they're going to law school. And I'm going to grind through and I'm going to graduate at the top of my class. But now I need to get a job with the best firm. And we keep setting goals. We have no happiness in our daily life. Mm-hmm. We keep saying when we reach the goal, then we'll be happy. But once we reach the goal, we set a new goal. And we keep kicking happiness down the road. Yeah. And we never actually enjoy the moment that we're in. And the people that are more successful are those who can enjoy the journey every day. Yeah. And as you just said in the different study, that if you're enjoying the journey every day, you actually have a better chance of meeting your goal than if you just figure I'm going to grind and I'm going to grind. So yes, I agree with that 100%.
So in this study, one of the things that they looked at was, you know how they have like the 1 through 5 and like at the top is satisfactory. And then at the bottom, I forget what the bottom of it is, but his point was within that scale, he goes, realistically, like the scale shouldn't be like satisfied. He said the goal, like if you switched it to like 1 through happy, he goes, you would be amazed at how different people would look at the scale. Like people would be willing to admit,
right?
Like this is what it would take to be successful, and I'm willing to do that because it will be happy. Like I will make it happy.
Right.
So there's all these little things as far as like language and like how you use it, and if people are truly happy in what they're doing, and yada yada yada. But I think the fascinating part of it is actually looking at happiness as like a goal is corny, but looking at happiness as a driving factor. Like something that can actually be a fuel to propel you instead of something that is an end goal that you get by getting there.
No, I agree. I agree.
So I don't remember how we got on that.
I don't remember either, but it is a people's ability to. Well, let me ask you this, because you've been on lots of teams. Have you ever been on a team that was generally successful in the win-loss standpoint, but was no fun?
It's a really loaded question. I will try to answer it simply by saying I have been on teams where individually I was having a less enjoyable time than maybe other individuals on the team. I don't know if collectively I was ever on a team where the mood was just miserable. I've been very fortunate in that aspect.
Okay. And not like the mood's not always miserable because you have kids and they're, they get along and there's fun but I have been on teams that were really good and bonded and loved each other and all that stuff. And I've been on teams that were really good and there was just tension all the time. They didn't get along and they hated the coach. I've known of teams that are playing in, high school teams that are playing in district championship games. And if they lost and, seasons came to an end, that the coaches were happy to be over because they couldn't stand the kids. The kids were happy to be over because they couldn't stand the coaches. And people just have this belief. It's kind of like in the corporate world or in the real world with money, that people have this belief that on a team, if you win, everybody's going to be happy. And just in the real world, if you make a lot of money, everybody's going to be happy. And it is crazy that we don't focus on, like, money will make us happy, winning will make us happy. Well, how about what makes you happy will make you happy?
Sure.
And we just miss all that, and we equate, well, if this happens, we'll be happy.
Yeah. I think I always use like the bell curve aspect of it, because the groups that as a player and a coach, the groups that I've been on that have been the most successful or the closest, like they were truly, like, for lack of a better word, like they really were brotherhoods. Like,
correct.
They were groups that like we had devoted years. I mean, like a decade's worth of time of like traveling and being together and like being a part of something. The irony to that is they were the happiest groups that I was around, but they were also the most honest groups. They were the groups that were willing to call you out. Like they were the groups that were willing to fight with you or argue with you because you were like brothers. Like you were, at that point, you're like family after you've been around people for 8-10 years, right? So there is this irony of like, not only is it about accepting happiness and using it as a driving factor, but there's this weird aspect too where like happiness does not always look the way you think it looks. Because to most people, happiness is kumbaya and like you never fight or argue. But I would argue the happiest groups I've ever been a part of were groups where like we vehemently fought with each other over what we thought mattered. So it's a weird.
Yeah, no, I get it.
It's a weird aspect to like, it's easy for you to and sit here and be like, accept happiness, like use happiness. But I also recognize that like, I think happiness is very challenging because it's not always the thing we think it is. Sometimes happiness is very challenging. It's accepting the fact that it's not always going to be rainbows, and it's accepting the fact that like you're gonna show up when you don't want to show up, and that's hard for people. It's
I get it. The kumbaya was a good word to throw in there because it is, and in the aspect of what's happy to some people. Some people, as Jerry talks about, running his marathons and stuff like that, and that makes him happy. And I couldn't think of anything that would make me, I could think of some things that would make me less happy, but not a lot. Running 26 miles does not seem like happiness to me.
Sure.
And that is one of the other things that we struggle with is what happiness looks like to other people as opposed to what it looks like to us.
Sure.
And imposing we just had this conversation in the locker room that we just lost a triple overtime game, and I said it was a blast. Like, you obviously don't want to lose,
sure,
but the thrill of, we'd run rattle out, they could have won it, and we were winning, and we were losing, and we tied it, and all this.
Yeah.
And we had kids like, it wasn't fun at all because we lost.
Yeah.
And it's just the way that you're wired. But I think there's a part of society that's like, we see this now. We talk about it all the time on here about life and where American society is. When I was a kid growing up, there was this thing in school that like you needed to go to college, or what were you doing with your life? Now, you know, I hear kids that are like, I don't want to go to college. And I'm like, you don't have to. What do you like to do?
Sure.
You know, there are all these things, you will do better as a plumber, as an electrician, as a carpenter. You'll do better than 90% of the people who go to college.
You hinted at the word, like you brought up society and kind of like how they play into it all, especially like the perception of society, like how society looks at you. I have noticed in everything that I've done, and again, I'm super naive and still young yet, but I have noticed like the things that I have found to be the happiest for me, whether it's a friendship, a relationship, a team, work, like whatever it is, the things where I have found the most happiness were the things that were not instantaneous. They were things that like you had to work and chip away at. And then all of a sudden, 4 years down the road, 6 years down the road, 8 years down the road, you kind of stop for a second and look around and you go, this is pretty great. And I think the way society is worked right now completely works against that, because everything is like now, like we need it now. We want it now. Like, I don't want to have to work for this thing. Like I can get it now. And I do think that works a ton against happiness, like a ton. I think happiness usually comes from like, we've grinded and we've gone through this thing, and now look at us. Like, look back how far we've come. And society does not work that way right now, like at all.
No, I agree. The things I think in life that have made me most happy is I'm not saying like rebel without a cause, but there are so many things in life that people are like, well, you have to do it this way.
Mm.
And I'm like, why?
Mm.
And the kind of when you get there's so many things in life when you burst through that, well, why?
Mm.
Like when my ex and I split up, and I didn't have anywhere to go, so I moved in with my mom.
Mm.
And it's been 8 years now, and I'm still with my mom.
Right.
And there's all these people like, well, you can't live with your mom the rest of your life. And I was like, well, why not? Because she's getting older. She doesn't want to live by herself. Right. Like, there's lots of reasons it's better for her. It's better for me. It's better for my kids. And I'm happy.
Sure.
So why would I go somewhere else?
That the aspect that you're describing, not to get like too meta, the aspect that you're describing to me seems like a very individualized, right? Like that idea of asking why and like rebel, like use the word rebel, right? Like to go against the status quo. To me, it almost sounds like you're seeking out an individual happiness that other people may avoid because of societal standards, right? And I think what I described is more of like the group aspect. Like how do you find happiness within a group? Well, it doesn't happen in 2 days, right? Like it doesn't happen in 2 weeks. Like, so it's a fascinating, I really enjoyed that because you made me look at it. You made me find that finding happiness from an individual aspect could be incredibly different from finding happiness within the group aspect, which I hadn't thought about that way before.
Well, you know, and I know that you know, but in talking to you about coaching, and there are almost dozens of things when you're like, well, this is how we did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in lots of like nobody else did it that way. And you're like, well, that's how we do it. And you know, when someone says, well, you can't do it that way, and you're like, why not?
Right.
And there are lots of your coaching philosophies are like, well, this is the way we do it. And I don't really care what anyone else does, because this is the way we do it, and it works for us. Mm-hmm. And there are too many people in society who can't get to that. Well, this is the way I do it. It works for me. It's not hurting anyone else.
See, I wonder too, and maybe maybe I'm posing things onto you. I would say, like, to kind of wrap it up, I think early on for me, I was always more comfortable with myself than within a group. I knew
because no one likes you.
That's what it was. I knew.
Still is.
Thank you. I knew the things that I wanted to do, and I knew the things I liked, and it was very easy for me to fall into like my own lane of like, okay, if you don't want to do this with me, cool. Like I can do it by myself. So I think because of that, I have always tried to seek out happiness within group forms, right? Being a part of a team, being a coach, like whatever that may be. I'm curious, like, do you feel like you had an easier time than maybe I did forming into groups? So now the older you get, You seem to be trying to figure out how to seek out happiness in an individual way or in an isolated way. I almost feel like we did. I almost feel like we did opposites. Where for me, I was so comfortable with myself that immediately, like as a teenager and then through college and then into my 30s, it was, how do I fit into a group? How do I find happiness within these things? And I wonder if for you, it was the opposite of like, I've been a part of these groups. Like, how do I find happiness?
That is interesting. But I've always, like, I don't drink, and I've never drank. And as a red-blooded American male who played college football, like I wasn't an outcast, but I was an anomaly.
Sure.
So I've never had any trouble being like, nah, it's like that's cool, but that's not what I want to do.
Sure.
So when there's lots of things that happen, and
maybe not then.
Like with my basketball team, we have some kids that start every game, and then I have some kids that I rotate. And there have been lots of people that said to me, you can't do that. Yeah. And I'm like, why not? And then you mentioned some teams like, well, North Carolina did it. And there was, but there's just people that like, if it's unfamiliar to them,
sure, you
can't do it that way.
Right.
And
I've told you before, I've never used a whistle.
Yes, you told me that.
And people have asked me like why. And my biggest
you always said because I forgot it.
No, it wasn't. For me, it was the idea of like, I just want them to know it's me. Like when I'm coaching in a game, I don't get a whistle. So the more they like hear my voice, and when I would tell people this, like you would have thought I like was breaking the foundations of like to coach without a whistle is just absurd. Like how like it was. But to me, like that just made so much sense. But the pressure to like use a whistle as a coach like blows my, like even something very simple as that blows my mind.
Well, and that's a perfect example because I heard you say that and I agree with everything you said. Like I want them to respond to my voice, not the whistle.
Right.
But the whistle is so help because I even thought about that and I tried it and I was like, no, I like the whistle better. Because when everyone's in the gym, I can just be like treat and then everyone responds.
Right.
But again, it's like something of that aspect. You were young. You're like, yeah, I don't use a whistle in practice. And 99% of the coaches look at you and are like, well, he doesn't know what he's doing because how dare you run a practice with no whistle?
Right.
Well, we were in baseball practice every day with no whistle.
Sure.
Because there's no whistles in baseball.
Sure.
So they respond to the coach's voice. So yeah, I'm yes.
It's interesting. That was a good one. I appreciated that one.
Good. Do you think, did any listeners?
Yeah,
do we have any left?
Yeah, we have some.
Are they
left.
Gone?
No, we have some left.
You're saying that looking at me. You're not looking at the numbers.
When you described yourself as a red-blooded American male,
we lost it all.
The numbers
we lost them all
significantly.
That's
significantly. Vogue says Brad rants, and I say good show. There you go. Good show.
First of all, he just logged back in.
Just now, he just did it. Lisa says like cilantro. I don't get how some people like that taste. Too much cilantro.
I don't know what cilantro is.
I don't know how to describe it to you. Like it's how do I describe this? I don't know how to describe cilantro. It's like but when you have it, it's like very potent. Like I don't love cilantro.
Is it a medicine?
No. It's like a seasoning, like kind of thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You've had cilantro and didn't even know it. Yeah. Cilantro is on more stuff than you think.
We should mention this to the 4 people who are still listening. We're going to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday format because it's just real world thing. It's going to work better. So Monday, I was going to whine about the Cowboys playoff schedule, but since they don't play till Monday night, you can come back and whine on Monday.
You can wait. All right. Looking forward to that.
Pennsylvania gets the weekend off because the Steelers aren't in, which breaks my heart. Breaks my heart dearly as a Cowboy fan. And the Eagles are off because they got a bye. So it will be a Pennsylvania-free football weekend. But next week, the Eagles are back against, we'll find out who wins.
Yeah.
Could be the Cowboys.
And you and I talk. If something happens, we might still jump on like a random Tuesday.
We can. We
might hop on for 20, 30 minutes, just give our opinions.
You know, we'll decide.
People need our opinions.
Well, they need that. And we'll decide if it makes us happy.
That's what we're going to do. If it makes us happy, we might still jump on.
We'll do it. If it makes us happy.
And, if we end up winning an Emmy, if we end up, if Microsoft decides to sponsor the show, we'll go 5 days a week again.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows what'll
Exactly.
happen? We'll see what happens. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all your local news. Real quick before you go, you didn't mention. I thought you would enjoy the Biden and his Corvette, and then I got Trump in his golf.
Oh,
cart.
I didn't even see it.
I thought you would
very,
enjoy that.
very clever.
Yes, like a kid with the two Hot Wheels in his hands, just smashing
very
them together.
Very clever. I was going to say, you know what would make me happy right now?
What's that?
Lunch.
I'm surprised you didn't ask before. Usually you ask.
Well, I had some fruit, so I was kind of. I'm trying
Friday's
to
a
eat.
rough day though, because now we're gonna go have a meeting, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah,
it's
I know. I'm trying to eat better, and I've got this whole thing of fruit, and I was like, cheesesteak or fruit. It's hard to justify. Like, I'm trying to eat better.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the cheesesteak.
Yeah.
Now, before the day's over, for dinner, am I gonna have a cheesesteak? Maybe.
Yeah.
But I've had some fruit, and I kind of feel good about myself.
Long time ago, I came across an article, and the guy talked about how when a famous person dies of a heart attack, like salad sales spike the next day.
I never even thought about that.
It's really interesting.
That makes perfect sense.
Like if tomorrow, like I hate to if a famous person X tomorrow died of a heart attack, literally everybody would go to the grocery store and get lettuce the next day.
I believe that.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I believe that.
Funny things. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. I'm Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. We will see you guys on Monday.
Later.